The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, just giving a couple of minutes for last-minute people to join, but we're going to start in just a few seconds. So grab a cup of tea or anything else that you need. So welcome to this first webinar. It's the first in a series dedicated to B2B marketing that's being hosted by Passel, and it should hopefully be useful to both LinkedIn novices and veterans. LinkedIn is fantastic, I think we can all agree, but they do like to bury all sorts of useful features. So the point of today is about discovering where these hide and how best to use them. We'll be covering 3 main points, and then there'll be time for a Q&A. So if you think of any questions whilst this is going on, or if you need any clarification, then just let me know and pop it into the question or in the general chat, and I'll cover that later. So these are the 3 main areas that we're going to cover today: some LinkedIn basics, how to build your contact list on LinkedIn, and also Pulse 101. So we're going to start with LinkedIn basics then. These might be very basic for some of you, so I'm going to gloss through these fairly quickly. You can consider them a checklist of areas to improve on, and if any of it isn't clear, again, just pop me a question. So top of the list is your LinkedIn personal profile. Well, most of you will have filled it out, but have you filled it out as best as you can? Here's an example of a good-looking profile, Mary Smith. She's made the most of the subtitle, for instance, and she's uploaded a professional-looking photo. She's also taken care over her summary, which shows her human and her professional side. I've seen quite a few bad profiles photos on LinkedIn. So I thought I'd just talk about that very quickly. Try to keep it professional, avoid group shots, grainy pictures, anywhere where you're nursing a margarita. If you don't have one, get one done. Smartphones these days are so easy to get like great pictures from. You just need a friend to take a decent one and you're up and running. I've also seen them used as an opportunity to plug your work or your business. People sometimes pose with a book they've published. It's a little cheesy, but if it's right for your target audience, why not? The tricky part really, though, is the rest of the profile. A common error is to treat your profile like a CV and just copy and paste sections from your resume. You should instead try and see it as an opportunity to give a rounded view of your experiences. And that doesn't have to be just text, by the way. LinkedIn supports rich media such as Prezi, Storify, SlideShare. Just as a quick example here, for instance, I've used a SlideShare presentation, but I could have just as easily added a YouTube video or an Instagram video. So as you can see, it's really easy to add. You just have to hover over your job experience and click that little square with a plus, and then copy and paste the link to the SlideShare below. These things just make your profile come alive, so they're really worth doing. Another thing, whilst we're talking about profiles, is have you personalized your URL yet? And if not, why not? It's really easy to do, and it means you can share a less convoluted address with your contacts. So to do that, you have to go to your profile page. You'll see below your profile picture a light grey box with your URL, and if you hover over it, a little cog appears. If you click on it, it takes you to your public profile page. And on your right-hand side, you can edit your URL to something a little bit easier to remember. So here I've gone for my full name, but I could have just as easily gone for, I don't know, Passel Marketing or anything else like that, and so could you. This is actually a really useful page, so it's quite strange that LinkedIn makes it so hard to find. It's also where you can edit how people see your public profile. So you can choose whether everyone sees it or only your contacts, and which sections of your profile you want people to see. So for instance, if like me, your interest section is a bit of a hot mess, you'd rather not share with people, you can untick it and no one will be any the wiser. So that's that. Of course, there's no point making your profile page beautiful if no one is going to see it. So don't forget to include it in places such as email signatures or business cards, your personal website or blog, your biography page on your work website, etc. The other thing to bring traffic back to your page is to post regular updates. And a question I often hear is, when is the best time to post? So with LinkedIn, it's common wisdom that midweek, Tuesday to Thursday, either first thing in the morning before 8:30 a.m., lunchtime, and early evening, 5 to 6 p.m., are the best times. Now, this makes sense because the audience is predominantly professional and will be checking LinkedIn while commuting or in their lunch break or just at the end of the day just to check in. However, it might be different for you. Your audience might behave completely differently. They might be checking LinkedIn on their way to meetings during the day or have it running as a tab throughout the day. And of course, they might be in a different time zone to you, so your own pattern might not sync with theirs. So the best way to work out the best time really is to test it and test it and test it. So the way that I do that is I post updates through a tool called Buffer, which you've probably heard of. And they have this great feature which lets me check the optimal posting time in my time zone. You can see here it says Europe, London, for each of my social media accounts, and this includes my personal LinkedIn profile. So as you can see, if I post one update a day, they suggest that it should be at 2:33 p.m., which is completely different to the recommended times for LinkedIn. So that's quite interesting because it's based on how my previous updates have performed, and I've posted them at various times of the day to see when it works best. If you don't have Buffer, there are other analytics tools such as Google Analytics, which is free, which should give you some insights as to when your audience is predominantly active online. So that's worth doing. Finally, last bit on the basics section, I should briefly mention LinkedIn groups. There are a gazillion of groups out there, and I can't recommend enough joining 2 to 3 groups that are relevant to your sector and being alive in them. You have to be quite selective about groups, though, because some of them are just overrun by salespeople and there's not much discussion going on. You want to find one that's full of the right people engaging with it in the right way. So it takes a little bit of research, but once you find them, these are the groups that you want to be active in. So it's worth doing. But I wouldn't stretch further than 3 groups because otherwise you're just, going to be a drive-by commenter, aren't you? So that's it for LinkedIn basics. Next, we move on to building your contact list. LinkedIn is a professional social network, so building and maintaining a list of contacts through it is key. If you're not systematically adding people you meet through the course of your business day to LinkedIn, then you're missing a trick. Another thing you should think about doing is uploading your list of contacts to LinkedIn. And by this, I mean professional contacts. You don't want to pester your cousin twice removed with your LinkedIn activity necessarily. But if you have a list of newsletter subscribers, for instance, are they all your contacts on LinkedIn? There's a really easy way of uploading them, but again, LinkedIn hides it well because they'd rather have your Gmail access and all that kind of stuff. So the way to do it is to click on connections in the header, and then in the drop down it will say add connections, and then you'll notice on the right hand side, which I've helpfully highlighted with a little arrow here, that there is import file button where you can upload a CSV file of your connections. So there you go, nice and easy. You can also do this the other way around. You can import all your contacts that are on LinkedIn out to put them, maybe if you've got a CRM system or anything like that. And the easiest way to get to that, by import I meant export, sorry, I'm getting my words muddled up. So the best way to export them is to go directly to this website, linkedin.com/people/export settings. So the next thing that you should consider is tagging people. Now, tagging, again, is a really nifty feature of LinkedIn's, but again, it's not terribly obvious. So when you go onto your contacts and hover over a profile, you'll now see an option which says tag appear. And you could use it to tag someone, for instance, as being someone to reconnect with in London, or a marketing professional Northeast, or any other label that makes sense to you and is helpful. So here with this chap, for instance, I've tagged him as a partner and an accountant East Midlands. This is really useful because I could group message everybody that I've tagged in a particular way. So say, for instance, you've written a great article that is directly relevant to a tagged group, you can message them that link. So for instance, if I find a great piece about accountancy in the Midlands, I could select everyone with that tag and message them in one go. As you can see there, it gives me option to message with select all. I've just filtered it by that tag. So I would say use that sparingly. It's got to be useful rather than spammy for it to work, and don't do that every week. But if you do it once in a while, it can be incredibly effective. So worth doing. The tagging itself can be time consuming, I'm not going to lie. It's the sort of thing you might want to do while watching TV, or even delegate to an assistant or an intern if you have more than 1,000 contacts. But it's really worth doing, and once it's set up, it's not so much work. You can just do it systematically when you add a new person, and it will really pay dividends. Now, the next natural step from this is to make notes about each of your contacts. And this is best done straight after meeting them, say at a conference. Take time that evening to write where you've met them and any relevant details that you might forget in a week's time, or even maybe do it at the conference. Just find a quiet spot somewhere to just quickly jot down a few notes. Really worth it. This can be accessed by going to their profile. Under their profile picture, you'll notice a star with relationship written. So this is someone I've just added, so as you can see, it's pretty bare. But I could add a note of how we've met and even a reminder to get in touch a day or a week later about a particular project. That bit is brilliant. So that's a function that's really worth doing. And both of these things, the tagging function and the notes, are completely free. You don't even need premium or anything else. So if you have a limited budget for social media, this is perfect. Something else I should make clear as well is that they won't know what you've tagged them as or what notes you've written, so you can really write things in a shorthand that makes sense to you. Don't worry, they won't see it. Finally, last but not least, I'd like to discuss Pulse. It's really worth a section of its own, as when it's done right, it can be brilliant. So what is Pulse? Originally it was known as Publisher, and Pulse was a more gated entity controlled by LinkedIn. But things have evolved, and you can now use Pulse to talk interchangeably about both. I would describe it personally as the blog section of LinkedIn, a place where you can write longer posts rather than just updates. Any Pulse post you create also appears on your profile, which I'm showing here, unless you choose for it not to, obviously, as discussed earlier in the public profile section. So they're worth spending time on, because that's the first thing really that's going to hit people, and they're going to be like, oh, that person knows what they're talking about. They're really an expert. They keep talking about, I don't know, fintech in the UK. Cool. So what do you write, really, is always the question with these kind of things. I always find that looking to other people helps. So I would suggest looking to Pulse itself, which is quite well hidden again. So I'm not sure if you've really explored it systematically, but you'll find it under the interests header. And then once you're on it, if you click the little button that's next to Pulse, you can see all sorts of different sectors here, all sorts of interests like big ideas and innovation, technology, entrepreneurship, and so forth. So I would go to the sector that's most relevant to you, and there are some more if you click on Discover More. It's not completely comprehensive, but they're pretty good. These are all posts that LinkedIn have handpicked, so we know that they work. So read them and see what is working in your area, such as length, types of title, as well as content. So over here, for instance, I've just gone onto entrepreneurship, and looking at the types of titles, I was noticing a little bit of a trend towards odd-numbered lists. So if you're well, not lists, but how 3 grads or 5 exciting Indian startups and so forth. So that seems to work quite well as a title. I've also noticed that the posts they write are of medium length, up to 600 words, and sometimes they only publish part of the post with a see more link to their business blog, which is a really good way of driving traffic back to your site again. So worth doing if you have a blog that's hosted somewhere else than LinkedIn. There's no magical recipe for ending up in this featured section, and you might not necessarily want to. It's not the be-all and the end-all, but if you want to increase your chances of that, one thing you might do is keep an eye on LinkedIn's editorial calendar, which they make public. So, for instance, this month the theme is productivity, and tagging it #productivity_hacks will increase its visibility. LinkedIn actually invite recommendations from the general public of articles to share. So if you write the perfect post on productivity, I would tweet them a link at LinkedIn Pulse. I put the name there, the handle. So that's a little trick. But I would recommend actually taking a leaf out of LinkedIn's book and making your own editorial calendar. People love consistency, whether it's one post a week or one post every 2 weeks. So maybe deciding what you're going to be doing, like post twice a month on a particular theme that month and a particular theme the next month and so forth, could be a really good way to entice people. I personally wouldn't create more content than once a week. Otherwise, people really get fed up, because when you post a Pulse post, all your contacts get a notification. And if that happens more than 3 times a week, let's say, they'll probably unfollow you, because they'll get all excited when they'll see a notification and be like, oh, it's you again writing about this thing. So don't do that. Try to find a pattern that's just realistic for you, but not too spammy. It's a hard balance. At Passel here, everyone shares the weekly newsletter, for instance. That's a sort of weekly post, and that's a really easy way for everyone to consistently create a post with good content without spamming too much. So that's one way you could do it. The other thing that's worth spending time on when you're creating a Pulse post, so here is a draft Pulse post, by the way, I haven't filled in anything, is creating a good header image. Again, images are key, really, to getting people reeled in. The ideal size for LinkedIn is 700 by 400 pixels. I would really create one that's tailored for that, or your picture will look distorted or pixelated, and that's not a good look. It's off-putting. LinkedIn in general does tend to require really specific sizes for header images, group logos, and so forth. And I think that header used to be a really bizarre number, like 698 by 400 pixels. Not really helpful. So this can be a bit of a pain in the neck if you don't have an in-house designer, or you're not that handy with Photoshop. And so I would like to recommend a tool that I use, which is Canva. Oh, Canva's brilliant. There are lots of other tools, obviously, that are great, like Pictochart and Easily, but I just keep returning to Canva as it's really quick and easy to use for things like this. So I just want to quickly show you some of the things it does. I personally use Canva for Work, which costs about $9 a month, but the free version does plenty as well. So as you can see from this screenshot, as well as offering templates that are set up for various social media networks, and if I had scrolled down, you would have seen this includes Twitter and Facebook headers as well, which is great. You can also use custom dimensions. You can see that on the top right there. So that's what I use for LinkedIn images, because actually one thing that Canva doesn't have is LinkedIn templates for some reason, but I'm sure they'll be adding those soon. Now, the great thing about Canva for Work is that it saves your brand colors, your fonts, your logos, so it's really easy to keep your message consistent across different networks. So I've just created one here that's a LinkedIn header image for an imaginary post that would be about 3 ways in which lawyers use social media, for instance. So this is the type of header image that I could create in 2 seconds. I've taken one of Canva's free photos. I've just applied a filter to it, which I think is called Street, which is black and white and just makes it look kind of cool. And then I've added our Passel logo, and nice and simple. I find generally that minimal text works best for LinkedIn headers. No point cramming in too much text in there. And here it's in the right dimensions for it, but if I wanted to, I could also save it in a different format. So for instance, if I wanted to promote that post on Twitter, I might reformat it into a Twitter post. Or I could also do things completely the other way around and use an image I've used before and redimension it so it fits the LinkedIn format. Both ways work. So yeah, I know I'm sounding a little bit like a Canva salesperson, but it really does make my job easier. Okay, so you've written your pulse post, you've given it a great header that's relevant to your sector, and the title, and you've hopefully also tagged it. Now, I haven't shown that, but if I scroll down further down, it gives you the option to add 3 tags, and I would think about those quite cleverly. Yeah, so what's next? Well, you should really share your pulse post, really, so other people can see it. So obviously, when you publish it, all your contacts on LinkedIn get notified, and that's great. But you could go a step further and share it on other social networks, such as your personal LinkedIn page. Your company LinkedIn page is also a good one to share it to, and relevant LinkedIn groups. I would also tweet it to LinkedIn Pulse, obviously. Add it to your email signature so that the people that you're contacting can see that you are engaging with industry news and things like that. Yeah, and another thing you might think of doing, very sparingly I would say, is contact influencers in your field and ask them very kindly if they wouldn't mind sharing it on their feed. Now, I wouldn't do this too often because, again, it can be a bit spammy, and I would really reserve it for your very best material. But if you do it from time to time and it works, then you're going to increase your reach phenomenally. The other effective method for sharing your expertise, which will cost you a little bit of money, but it does have a great return on investment, is to go down the sponsored post route on LinkedIn. I'm a really big advocate of it because it does it in a laser sharp way. But to do this, you need to have a LinkedIn company page, and B, you need to share your pulse posts on it. But I would hope that you all had a LinkedIn company page anyway. If not, that can be the subject of another webinar entirely. But to access the sponsored post features, you need to click on business services, then advertise. So there you go. You can target people from a specific workplace as well as be more general. So for instance, you could target people who work at Irwin Mitchell, or you could target people who work at a law firm. You can target specific job titles, seniority, company size, and so on and so forth. This is really perfect for B2B companies, as you can make sure that the right people in the right business are going to see you share your expertise. I would recommend that you go for the pay-per-click option rather than per impression. And you can also adjust how much you want to spend per day as well as how long you want to run it for. The analytics are pretty great for these campaigns. You can switch off posts that aren't performing as well. This is a screenshot of a campaign I did a while back. So you can see these buttons here. I could switch them off if I feel like a post isn't doing so well. And you can also see where your top clicks are coming from. So here it divides it by region, job function, industry, seniority, company size. Really useful. So that's that for sponsored posts. So as a takeaway for Pulse, I would say that one thing to remember above all is not to create posts just for the sake of it. Remember who your target audience is and create content that they will find useful or interesting. And this includes commenting on breaking industry news, by the way. So there we go. These were 3 steps for pushing your LinkedIn usage to the next level. So brushing up the basics, making the most of your contacts, and using Pulse. Hope it was useful. If you have any questions, and I've been sent a couple by email, then I've got time to answer a couple of those. But yeah, thank you. So I had a question from Leslie who asked if titles and degrees in the name field help or hurt. So I would say to be very careful about those. I think it hurts in general. You can get blacklisted basically by LinkedIn. They're very specific in their user agreement. They say you really have to use your last name in the last name field. So I would personally avoid that. And while we're on it, I would also avoid putting phone numbers. It just looks incredibly spammy. You'll be known as what's called a lion. I don't know if you've heard about those, a LinkedIn open networker, i.e. a big spammer, and you want to steer clear of that. You want to seem professional, respectful, all those kind of things. So I wouldn't do that. Okay, we've got a question from Chris as well. Well, it's actually two questions. One is, how often should I update my LinkedIn profile? And sometimes nervous of posting articles onto LinkedIn in case my contacts view it as spam. Any advice? Okay. Well, for the first one, I would say don't update your LinkedIn profile too often. But if you have a great slide share that is relevant, then I would add that to it. If you've just completed a really amazing project for work that you're proud of, then definitely include it. But again, that can be sent out to your contacts when you're updating things. So I would do it sparingly and when you've got a big splash to be made. And as for posting articles, well, as I said earlier, I would limit it to once a week. With updates, you can be more frequent than that because the feed moves so quickly, and it's actually often hard to see the updates, find what somebody said. And actually, I might try and see if I can show you that, if my thing will let me get out. So if you go onto somebody's you have to go to somebody's connection. So like, let's go to Emily Morris. So you actually have to go onto view recent activity to be able to see all of her updates. If you didn't do that, you might not know how many times she's posted recently. So it's quite well hidden. Yeah, so that's that. Any other questions? Are there any alternatives to Buffer? Oh, yeah, no, there's lots. There's Hootsuite, which is really good as well. And actually don't, I mean, it depends if you mean for posting to LinkedIn or if you mean for finding out the best time to post updates for. I'd say to post things with, you don't necessarily need to use Buffer. There are all sorts out there. It's just my favorite. But you could use Hootsuite is another very, very popular one, which people like, and they do very good things. So I know, like for instance, for Twitter on Hootsuite, you can keep track of how often people use certain keywords, for instance, which can be really useful if you're wanting to see how people are talking about you, but not necessarily tagging you in that conversation. For finding out the best time to post, any kind of analytics that you have on your own website would be the best first port of call that you should go to, I think, just for knowing when your clients and target audience are actually online. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. If that's all for questions, I'm going to let you get on with your day. Thank you very much.